row. Third row of the grid shall be Morgan Porter and Nicolas Pico from Danny Caranini and Niels Kuhlen, with rounding out the top 10, Daniel Trager and Leonardo Caglioni. A very exciting start to proceedings then, with just outside the top 10, Owen Byatt and Romain Leroux. And then we have Jonas Visser and Nicolas Bayart on the 7th row of the grid from Philip Vava and Danny Curl, still starting all the way down on the 8th row of the grid. Rivaldo van der Westerleken and Lena Buehler, who did a brilliant job in the first heat, ended up having to be excluded, unfortunately, from the second race of the day due to accident damage. And that's a real shame, unfortunately. She carried on motoring while the kart was in damage and was eventually black flagged, which is a real shame, actually, because Lena Buehler was doing a great job up to that point. Maybe she can fight it back. Jana Guvarts and Reese Ushijima are rounding out the top 20. Stefan Planchamp and Simon Henrad, who's had absolutely no luck at all this weekend, poor Simon, now finds himself on the 11th row of the grid. Damiano Marquesan is alongside Rashid Ghanem. Then it is Tom Nellison and Harry Barlow. And then behind them we have Michel Burnsman and Rafael Villagomez, the Mexican, who really could do with another bit of good luck. And then Ali Ikaby, Rufus Hunt, Boris Young and Noah Ruvers finishes up the starting grid. Now this one will be a very interesting challenge for the drivers involved, as the mechanics have been asked to clear the grid and all ready to go. Look at that, Joe Turney, one of the first drivers along with Sean Butcher to be ready to rock and roll. Both of these drivers on the front row of the grid have taken a heat victory thus far, Sean Butcher and Joe Turney. So both of them will want to get a second one, but from that second row of the grid, Rens van Pelt and Matilda Olsen both have a good chance to get there as well. There's been 2 top 5 finishes from Matilda Olsen today. Rens van Pelt has been in the top 5 throughout the weekend and had a little bit of bad luck on his way to get there to the top. Morgan Porter drove an absolute stonker of a race last time to fight his way through to the top 3. Nicolas Pico has been there or thereabouts, but has had a lot of bad luck. Danny Caranini drove quite well to be in the top 5 in that previous heat of his as well. Niels Kuhlen's had some difficulties, but he's there on the 4th row. Daniel Trager and Leonardo Caglioni, they're in their first race weekend of the 2018 IAME X30 Euro Series season here at Wackersdorf, the 3rd round of the championship. So they've acquitted themselves quite well considering, but it's always going to be quite tricky when you've missed the first couple of rounds of the championship. So they've done quite well, but the drivers are now being sent out onto the circuit. So it's time to go racing, and for a moment there I thought we were going to get going without Jana Guvarts, the Belgian, but he has now managed to get the kart started. Sean Butcher and Joe Turney on the front row from Van Pelt and Olsen, Porter and Pico, Caranini and Kuhlen from Trager and Caglioni. Bayat is 11th from Leroux, and then it is Visser, Bayat, Vava, Curl, Van der Westerleken, Buehler, Guvarts, Ushijima, then it is Planchamp, Henrad, Marquesan, Ghanem, Nellison, Barlow, Burnsman, Villagomez, Ikaby, Hunt, Young and Ruvers. So with 12 laps of this Wackersdorf circuit to come, it's going to be a very entertaining battle. 14.664 kilometres of racing await us in this 3rd and final heat for these drivers here today. And as the drivers get themselves ready for a great final race of the day, they will prepare obviously to do the best they possibly can to keep themselves out of the second chance heat. But any driver that gets themselves into the mix of that will want to obviously come out on top, but their mission is very simple: stay out of the drop zone, do not go down into the B final, as it were, the second chance heat. They all want to stay out of that one, but there's been some absolutely spectacular race action from the guys thus far. But Sean Butcher and Joe Turney from the front of the grid each have a win apiece, but only one of them can take their second heat win of the weekend. But with Rens van Pelt and Matilda Olsen hot on their tail, they will be wanting to snatch a heat win from them. So Butcher, Turney, Van Pelt, Olsen, Porter, Pico, Caranini, Kuhlen, Trager, Caglioni, Bayat, Leroux, Wisa, Bayat, Vava, Curl, Van der Westerleken and Buehler, with Guvarts and Ushijima in that top 20 as well. This is going to be a late run to the grid for a couple of drivers. I'm not sure they're all quite going to be in position. They may end up going around again, and it's okay. They're fine with it. Cracking start from Sean Butcher. It's a clean start, and as they run up to the first corner, it looks like everybody's going to get through reasonably okay. No major dramas through the first corner. Up to turn 2. Drivers trying to keep themselves out of disaster, and everybody's through okay. Butcher leads it. Turney second, and Matilda Olsen's charged up to 3rd in front of Morgan Porter. And as the rest of the field make their way through the hairpin, it's clean as a whistle until the exit of the turn. And I think that was Luki Trevs bouncing around in there. So we'll double check and see as they come through this time. But Luki Trevs, I think, ending up dropping a little bit down the order. So we'll have a double check, and as they come through, a few drivers making up positions on this first lap. Rens van Pelt's having a nightmare first lap. He's just going backwards. So Van Pelt has lost about 5 places on this first lap, and that is a problem for Lena Buehler. Not again. Lena Buehler, she had an amazing first run, and that's why, because there's 2 karts off at the penultimate corner. 2 karts have come together. Lena Buehler got caught up in it. That's the 229 and the 297 that have come together, unfortunately. So that is out of the race for Tom Nilsson and also for Harry Barlow. Unbelievable luck for Harry Barlow. He's had a really good run. Now Barlow's got the kart going again, I do believe, and has now come through towards the back of the field. But the 229, Nicolas Bayart, has come through. Tom Nilsson is in the mix there as well. Oh, sorry, it was Bayart and Nilsson who had the problem. Simon Henrad appears to be out of the race as well. I'm not even sure he got started, but Barlow is down to 28th position in the mix. So the Thule Motorsport driver needing to make progress, and he's already starting to make overtakes. But at the end of the second lap, it is Joe Turney in front of Sean Butcher. So Turney's made the move, got into the lead, and Butcher is down to second place with Matilda Olsen and Morgan Porter giving chase and in hot pursuit. So Joe Turney now in front of Sean Butcher. If they continue to squabble away, Matilda Olsen and Morgan Porter are definitely going to start closing up. Nicola Pico and Danny Catanini are in 5th and 6th from Trager, Kuhlen, Van Pelt and Calione. Rens van Pelt had a nightmare start from the second row of the grid, all the way down to 9th position at the moment from what was originally 3rd position on the grid. Morgan Porter's made the move on Matilda Olsen and has got through in a 3rd position. So that's a good run from Porter up into P3 past Matilda Olsen. But these two can still continue to work together to close up on Turney and Butcher. The big question is going to be, can they sustain this pace throughout the remainder of this heat? And can they resist the pace of Nicola Pico and Danny Catanini, who are closing up? Dan Trager was still in 7th place the last time he came across the line, I do believe. So I think he's still there. No, actually, Dan Trager's lost a couple of positions. It's now Niels Kuhlen in front of Van Pelt, Bayat, Calione, Weser and Trager. So Trager down to 12th place in front of Danny Curl and Reveldo van der Westerleken. Danny Curl is now the fastest man on the racetrack, by the way. Just set the fastest lap that time around. So the top 4 are up in the front end of the field and are getting away with a nice little queue developing behind them. Behind Danny Curl, it's Reveldo van der Westerleken and Philip Varver. Then it's Plochap, Leroux, Aikeby, Ushijima, Ganem and Rubers. And still at this moment, I think we've only got Simon Henrad and Tom Nilsson out of the race. Everybody else is still going. So the battle continues here up at the front end as Joe Turney still putting himself into a neat position. Now Philip Varver's lost a few places on that last lap, dropped to 16th position. But Joe Turney and Sean Butcher going beautifully at the moment. So Joe Turney leads the way, Butcher in 2nd, Porter 3rd, Matilda Olsen in 4th from Nicola Pico and Danny Catanini. But out in front it is Joe Turney. He's done a fantastic job thus far. And he continues to lead in fine formation at the moment. He comes up towards the hairpin. So Joe Turney in good form at the moment as he continues to move forward. They come out of the final hairpin and Joe Turney's got good speed on Sean Butcher, but Butcher's being a little bit vulnerable at the moment to Morgan Porter. Porter's starting to get the deadlock back down a bit. 4th place Matilda Olsen, very close and an opportunity to get in the top 3 once again. So who's on the move? Well, a move has been made there by Calione and Curl. They've both broken into the top 10. Catanini, by the way, got past Nicola Pico on that lap. I didn't see it, I was so busy watching the top 4. But if you look just behind these guys, there is Danny Catanini. He's got into 5th past Pico. Then it's Kuhlen, Van Pelt, Calione, Curl, Bayat and van der Westerleken. Ishijima made the move on that last lap as well on Ali Aikeby. So he's come through to another position, the American-Japanese driver. Oh, and there's contact! Contact further back up at the penultimate hairpin as well there. 2 karts have come together, yellow flags. Now that looks like Philip Varver has got into the war zone there with the 242. So that is Philip Varver battling away with Romain Leroux, and the 2 of them have come off the circuit at the same point up at Marshall Post 6. It's double waved yellows. They have both managed to get the karts going again, but for LaRue and Vava, that is almost certainly a trip to the B final from their point of view. They'll get the second chance heat tomorrow, but that is no consolation at all. So Joe Turney leads the way at the half distance point of proceedings. 6 laps down, 6 to go, and Turney has got a good advantage over Butcher and Porter. Now, Morgan Porter is reeling in Sean Butcher, and Matilda Olsen is going with them. She's not dropping back at all. So out at the moment, it is going to be Joseph Turney who leads the way. A good run out of the final turn. Sean Butcher in second place. Third is still Morgan Porter, and he is working very hard to close up on Sean Butcher. Morgan Porter putting in a good job here, but still in touch with all three of them is the bionic woman of the paddock, Matilda Olsen, still racing despite the fact that her right leg is actually in a special leg support after her accident a few weeks ago. Well, the doctors have cleared her to race, so she's okay. Into the S's. Joe Turney still out in front. Then it is Butcher, Porter, Matilda Olsen. Then it is the 3-3-1 of Danny Cananini, the Italian, from Nicola Pico, Niels Kuhlen, Rens van Pelt. And then inside the top 10 still is Danny Curl and Leonardo Caglioni. So Danny Curl is trying to work his way further through the field, but he's actually really struggling to stay in front of the trio of drivers just behind him, as we now have 4 laps to go. And for Joe Turney, he's barely even breaking a sweat. He got through into the lead on lap 2 and has pretty much started driving away from Sean Butcher and Morgan Porter. He's left them to their own devices. Matilda Olsen is still sat there in 4th position as well. This is a much stronger weekend from Matilda Olsen. We're going to see her right at the sharp end of the grid in tomorrow's race, as Roman LaRue has been given the warning flag by the officials. So clearly they adjudged that it was Roman LaRue who was the cause of that incident, and that is why he's been given the black and white flag there, warning that you need to calm your act down a bit, my friend. So that incident between Roman LaRue and Philip Vava, the blame has, for the moment at least, been put squarely at Roman LaRue's door. So the leaders come through once again, and with just 3 laps to go, it is going to be a very easy victory at the moment for Joe Turney. Now, Morgan Porter has fallen off the back of Sean Butcher and is now being caught by Matilda Olsen. He's going to make a move. 3rd position for Matilda Olsen. She gets there. The Swede is through. So Matilda Olsen has made her way into 3rd position. A good overtake there. And now she's trying to chase after Sean Butcher in 3rd position. Well, in 2nd position. I can't really avert the irony of this, because out on the circuit battling for 3rd position, we've got Sweden versus England. Oh, the irony. Through they come, battling away for 3rd position. Olsen still has Morgan Porter nailed for the moment, but closing in on the Australian Sean Butcher. Out of the final turn, Joe Turney going full guns blazing out in front. No problem for him to take the victory at the moment with 2 to go. He's got about 1.2 seconds, which has gone up to 1.5 on that lap, actually. Matilda Olsen still in 3rd place. Can she catch Sean Butcher before the end of this race? Well, it seems more likely that Morgan Porter's going to get another crack at 3rd place before Olsen can close up on Butcher. But if Olsen's been looking after her tyres well enough, then she will still have a little bit more pace in the kart to go for Sean Butcher in 2nd place. It's not unfeasible for someone as talented as Matilda Olsen, who's having a great weekend at last here in the 2018 season. But out in front, it is Joe Turney, and he's looking pretty comfortable in the lead of this race. 2nd is Butcher, 3rd is Olsen, 4th is Porter, then it is Nicola Pico and Niels Kuhlen, who have both got past Danny Caranini, and that's given Rens van Pelt a bit of motivation to close up and try and break into the top 6 as well, as we go into the final lap. And Joe Turney is looking for his 2nd heat victory of the weekend. Isn't it interesting how so far only one driver has taken 2 Senior X30 heat victories? That man is Clayton Ravenscroft. Which team does he drive for? KR Sport, who's about to take his 2nd heat victory in Senior X30. Another KR Sport driver, Joe Turney. They seem to be doing things by halves this weekend. So Joe Turney is going to be absolutely delighted with this result. Cantering to victory in front of the likes of Butcher, Olsen and Porter. I think that's going to finish that way, by the way. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I don't see Olsen getting close enough to Butcher and Porter getting close enough to Olsen, so it's going to end in that order, and a very fair finish that will be. But for the 2nd time today, Joe Turney gets the victory in the Senior X30 heat, and that means a lot to him, that one. Sean Butcher is 2nd, Matilda Olsen is 3rd, in the top 3 for the 2nd time in 3 races. Morgan Porter is fourth from Nicola Pico, Niels Kuhlen and Danny Catanini. The other Danny Curl, has fought his way back to 8th position, made up half his places. Rens van Pelt is 9th and Owen Byatt comes across the line in 10th position. So a very tough day of racing then from the Senior X30s comes to an end. Only 2 drivers were able to get 2 victories over the course of the day. Clayton Ravenscroft and Joe Turney, the teammates at KR Sport. So here is how the final heat of Senior X30 ends today. Joe Turney from Sean Butcher and Matilda Olsen, with Morgan Porter in 4th position, Nicolas Pico and Niels Kuhlen in the top 6 from Danny Catanini and Danny Curl, then Rens van Pelt and Owen Byatt from Leonardo Caglioni, Rivaldo van der Westerlaken, Daniel Trager, Stefan Planchap, Reese Ushijima, Rashid Ghanem, then Noah Ruvers, Ali Aikabi, Damiano Marquezan and Jonas Weiser. Lena Bueller is 21st in front of Rufus Hunt, Michelle Bernsman and Harry Barlow. And then in 25th position we have Yannick Guvarts in front of Boris Young, Philip Vava and Nicolas Bayart, with retirements from Roman Leroux, Rafael Villa-Gomez, Tom Nillison and Simon Henrard. A very disappointing end to the day for them, and they will emerge into the pre-final tomorrow. So some drivers having a tougher day at the office than others. We have just 2 races left of the day here at Wackersdorf in Germany. And it's going to be another barnstorming drive from the front of the starting grid on the standing start formation of the Super Shifter grid. For the third time of asking, my apologies, is it going to be Sten Dorian Pitamagi getting the triple and setting himself up for a charge to the championship title, which he could clinch tomorrow if all goes according to plan? So now it is going to be the X30 Super Shifter third and final heat, with Kevin Luddy and Sten Dorian Pitamagi on the front row of the starting grid. Kevin Luddy, perfect qualifying session yesterday to put himself on pole position, but ever since then it has been a living nightmare. He has had no good luck at all in the case of the first 2 races. Dropped initially down from pole position to 6th place, and then had to fight his way back through to 4th position, and then retiring from the race when he was already down in 4th position with a mechanical problem from the 2nd race. So this is the 3rd time of asking for Kevin Luddy to run the race from pole position, in the hope that he's got a good kart underneath him and can get the victory done. Otherwise, it's going to be a clean sweep of heat victories for Sten Dorian Pitamagi, whose pace and form have been so impressive in this first half of the season that after taking the pre-final and final victories in both Salisbury's and Marienborg, he now has a chance to become the IAME X30 European Series champion in the Super Shifter class. All he has to do is exactly what he did at Salisbury's and Marienborg, and the job is done. But having taken 2 heat victories at a canter, nothing is guaranteed, and he knows that, because obviously he's got 7 incredibly competitive racing drivers right with him on the start of this race, and he's got to get it absolutely spot on. Kevin Luddy could really do with some good luck now, having had a 4th position and a DNF. He shakes hands with his teammate Nico Rohrwasser. Kasper Korjus could do with a bit of a good luck as well. He starts 3rd on the grid, and he's there with his teammate on the right-hand side of the circuit, getting ready for a good battle. I love the spirit of brotherhood in this X30 Super Shifter grid. You never see too many drivers in the other classes hugging each other pre-race. But these guys are such good mates. They hang out with each other every single round of the championship. They seem to gather in packs, the X30 Super Shifters. They're good mates. They like to banter and bally with each other. And there's a nice mixture here of youth and experience in the X30 Super Shifter grid. You've got the young guns in the mix, the likes of Carlos Leon and Sten Dorian Pitamagi, who have really stepped up to the plate. And then the established guard in the mix there, the likes of Thierry Del Rey and Kevin Luddy, who have been very impressive champions at Super Shifter level in various different disciplines of the sport. And some of the new up-and-coming talent, of course, in the likes of Nico Rohrwasser and Philip Siever, who are still very strong. Good to see Michel Biffiger acquitting himself well. And, of course, Kasper Korjus is always a factor from that 2nd row of the grid, but he's had miserable luck thus far this weekend. So he could really do with a little bit more positives to come from this one. But it's now the battle between Kevin Luddy and Stentorian Pedimagi that takes centre stage in that first row of the starting grid. So as the drivers battle for supremacy, this could be a very interesting race indeed. And the drivers will be wanting a very positive start. So as the drivers get themselves into position, Thierry Del Rey just letting that blood flow around his race suit once again. As the drivers get themselves into their positions, we'll keep an eye on Casper Corjus and Carlos Leon from that second row of the grid. In particular, Carlos has had some pretty spectacular race starts in the first couple of race heats, and he'll be wanting another one. So it's going to be a very interesting battle as from the holding area, Alejandro Melendez just looks on there, the birthday boy, having had a victory in X30 Mini already this weekend. He's going out there in a moment for his third and final race of the day, I should say, before they get into the pre-finals and finals battle tomorrow. But obviously keeping an eye on his Spanish compatriot there, Carlos Leon, on the second row of the starting grid, wanting to make the charge forward. He has led part of this race. In fact, he's the only other driver other than Stentorian Pedimagi to lead a race so far this weekend. Carlos Leon led race one for about 4.5 meters before he ran wide on the exit of the penultimate hairpin and ended up losing ground to Stentorian Pedimagi again, who got into the lead and then started his typical routine of cantering away into the distance. But this time, surely, there needs to be somebody who can break the deadlock of Stentorian Pedimagi, who's just so good off the starting line. He's